This story. There is an app known as Aether World. It was launched 10 years ago as a dating simulator, targeted at the female audience, but it ended up being used mostly by the male players. And in this game, players are allowed to use different characters, ranging from easy and efficient characters to hard and inefficient characters. Amongst them was one useless character, known especially for his difficult level and bad skill features. This character is called Baek, and there was one player who used this character for over 10 years while playing the game. The name of the player is still unknown, and he is our protagonist. Our protagonist was drinking coffee while checking his computer to see comments on the game Aether World, and most players were complaining that the final boss in the game is unbeatable. Even a famous player commented that the final boss has 99% magic resistance with no cooldown time. How the fuck is he supposed to kill the boss? Our protagonist thought to himself that it doesn't make sense that there is a monster with magic nullifying skills in the game. Is it really a bug? He asked himself, and most players were complaining that their characters were being deleted in the Aether World. He was curious, so he logged into the game and he saw the final boss called Dark Demon Dragon. Dear listeners, this story is all about a game known as Aether World. The game is so realistic, and in it was a world dominated by a cult organization called Dark Demon Humans. Their goal is to help another world called Persona Gate take over the Aether World, and when they finally achieve their goal, 90% of Aether World has been taken over by the Persona Gate. Now back to the story. Our protagonist, after logging in, thought to himself that he can't avoid the final boss, so he might as well give it a try. Then the game sent a notification asking if he would fight the boss. Then he selected yes. Our protagonist ought to show off his gaming skills that he has honed for over 10 years, and Baek, the gaming character he uses, is the only character in the game that can't use magic, despite the fact that other gaming character can use magic. So because of this, even professional players chose not to play with Baek, because they feel he is worse than an extra. But of course, Baek has some magic skill, just only one, known as the blink spell. The blink spell allows him to travel between 3 to 10 meters very fast, but the direction he will blink to is random. So the user must control Baek well, if not he will die due to speed and object impact. By now our protagonist was already fighting the final boss in the game using his favorite character Baek, and the disadvantage of this character is that the mana usage and skill cooldown time is high. There's also a penalty that he can't move for 2 seconds after using his blink skill. So anyone can learn Baek, but most players don't use him. However, our protagonist has mastered the use of blink, and he can control Baek to the right direction. Our protagonist also managed to reduce the penalty, which is 2 seconds. Our protagonist became obsessed with the character Baek since everything depended on his skill level, so over the last 10 years, he has been playing the only character that does not have magic abilities in the game. Finally, he defeated the final boss in the game. The game character Baek does not have magic, but he is covered head to toe with ancient spells. However, he is still a garbage character. After killing the final boss, our protagonist decided to brag to the community about his achievements. He tried to post the gameplay, but suddenly, there were red alert on his computer saying G, because he reached the wrong ending. 90% of Aether World has been destroyed. However, he was the closest to reaching the true ending. Please, you have to reach the true ending, the game said. And suddenly, our protagonist vanished from the human world. He wondered where he was as he woke up in a building with a mirror at his front. He saw his face and was shocked to see that he is now the gaming character Baek. Then the game sent him a prologue of his quest he must win in order to move to the second stage of the game. Since our protagonist has been playing the game for over 10 years, he knows all about the game, and he is definitely in Aether World, and when he was still in the human world, he remembered the automated voice that said he must reach the game's true ending. But from what he has been playing, the game doesn't have a specific ending. Instead, it has multiple endings. Our protagonist then thought to himself, could it be that no one has managed to reach the true ending since the game was released? Now he has to face reality and win the quests for him to go back to the human world. Our protagonist remembered that whenever Baek wakes up in the game, there were always people chasing after him. And they burst into the hut he was staying, so he tried to look outside the window, but the people were already outside. The man with yellow head is their leader, and he told them to search the hut for him. Baek was cornered, and he couldn't fight them because he can't use magic. Suddenly, the game system informed him that he can use the blink skill. Blink skill means to move within a certain distance in an instant, and since magic leaks from Baekhyuseol's body, he can't accumulate mana in his body. But he has one hope, which is the blink skill. And our protagonist has practiced it for 10 years. Now back to the present. The game said that he has to use the blink skill to escape the people chasing him. But it was weird because our protagonist could use the skill well with a mouse and keyboard. But now he is the gaming character. The blink skill seemed hard to execute. Meanwhile, the people chasing him were already close to the hut, and there was no time for contemplations, so he has no choice than to try out the blink skill. Suddenly, he ran out of the hut and the people chased after him. This part of the game is a tutorial to learn how to use the blink skill, and the first part of the tutorial is to avoid the pursuers using blink. He couldn't run normally since the pursuers wore magic shoes. So they are faster than him, therefore the way he could escape is using blink skill. While running, our protagonist told himself to calm down. There's no need to panic since he has used blink countless times before, and the timing is burned into his muscle memory. By now his pursuers were already close by, and they wondered why he is not stopping, so they tried to attack him with magic. Hope you guys remembered the disadvantage of blink skill, which is, if the user fails to control the distance, they could collide with an object and die immediately, then it would be game over, but our protagonist uses the blink skill differently. So he blinked away from his pursuers. One of them was like, is he a mage? Did he just use blink? Their leader told them not to give up because the user always get paralyzed for 2 seconds after using blink, so it's to their advantage. But they were more shocked as our protagonist was still moving while using blink skill over and over again. He even used the uneven terrain to his advantage. In reality, 99% of players who used Baekhyuseol couldn't pass the blink tutorial, and even the 1% who passed the tutorial could not use continuous blink. Now back to the story. By now our protagonist has used blink to get far from his pursuers, and they saw him as an insane person to use blink in such dangerous terrain. Then the leader told his mages to attack him from the distance. As our protagonist was running, he remembered that the second tutorial of the game is to use blink skills to dodge the magic arrows flying at him, and in the game, the player can see everything behind him since it's on a monitor, so he felt he could dodge it. First he used cognitive acceleration and sixth sense. Then he used blink to dodge all the magical arrows. So he successfully passed the second tutorial. Now onto the last part of the tutorial. Our protagonist has to cross a canyon using the blink skill. The only way to cross is to control the distance of his blink perfectly in order to pass this tutorial. He has to cancel the blink spell, which occurs in 0.1 seconds at the perfect time, and if he fails even once he will die. There are about 20 floating boulders for him to cross, and to use the blink spell is a lot easier said than done. Just what freaking bastard made this tutorial, he asked himself. However, the tutorial is not that hard, but the problem is that the pursuers have caught up with him, and the distance between him and them is about 100 meters, since his blink has 3 seconds cooldown. There isn't enough time to cross the canyon, so the only way he could survive is to kill the pursuers. It sounds crazy for him to think he can kill the pursuers when he hasn't been in a proper fight before. If this were a game, the system won't allow him to attack the pursuers. But now the game is his reality, and there is no rule that says he has to blindly follow the game's system. And from the game's story, the people pursuing Baekhyuseol were his parents' enemy, so the thought of him killing someone doesn't bother him at all. He feels he can win against them. By now the pursuers were close to him and the leader ordered them to catch him. Our protagonist stood in a pose to fight back, and one of them said, "You dare to fight us alone, what an idiot." But our protagonist didn't fret because they were just 8.7 meters away from him, so he used the blink skill. Then he stabbed one of the pursuers in the chest. This event put the rest of them in shock because they underestimated him. As our protagonist stabbed one of them, the feeling of blood running down his fingertips felt so real, but he doesn't feel any sense of guilt at all. After all, he only killed them to survive. Then he sent the guy he stabbed flying backwards to their leader, and he started running. Although he dealt with one of them, the next attack won't be easy. How do I go about this? He thought to himself suddenly. Everywhere seemed quiet, and he wondered if they had given up on chasing him. But that was not the case. It turns out that the pursuers all combined their strength to cast a huge spell. It was so powerful that our protagonist could feel the heat from their distance, They sent the spell to his location, and the spell exploded the area on impact. "Serves him right for being so cocky and acting up," said the leader, but when he looked the area he was shocked to see that Baek-Yuseol's body was not there. Instead he was falling from the sky with a knife on his hand. He used the blink skill and he killed most of the pursuers within seconds. It's now remaining 2 of them. "What a weird guy. You got an uncanny speed for a mage. Who are you?" their leader asked. "Our protagonist's reaction speed is faster than most professional gamer. But that's only if we are talking about games." He thought to himself that he can't dodge their attacks forever using blink skill, especially at a close range, so he decided to end the battle as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, the leader of the pursuers thought to himself that he has figured out our protagonist's fighting skills. All he uses is blink skill and a dagger. And as long as he protects his face and neck, the dagger won't scratch him. So he was confident to win. Standing in a pose to fight, he casted magical skill on his sword called Ice Wave, but Baek-Yuseol averted his direction to the other guy and slayed him. This made the leader angry. He then said, "Earlier, you kept running like a rat who's scared to fight, and now you ain't scared no more," and our protagonist replied, "Thanks for helping me get better at fighting." This statement made the leader more angry, so he said, "You little brat, because we went easy on you. I will kill you this time," the leader said. Our protagonist picked up a spear from a dead guy and charged towards the leader with both spear and dagger on his hands. Upon seeing this, the leader thought our protagonist wanted to break through his defense with the spear. But it turns out to be a fake. He held it just to distract him, and the leader was shocked to see that he has been stabbed in the chest. Our protagonist killed him, and the game system sent a notification saying that he has successfully completed episode 1 of the game by escaping his pursuers. The game system also sent a message saying that he has gained experience points, and he has been granted additional reward for uniquely redeveloping the story, his first blink, first battle, and first murder. All these things shows that this is reality and not a dream. He killed someone in order to survive, and after that he decided to leave the place. But as he was leaving, a thought came to him that he has to think realistically since he has no money, so he decided to check the pocket of the leader, and behold, there's around 2 million credit coins, which is approximately 2 million won. Now the problem is that he has to cross over the cliff. Suddenly, he heard a voice from the other cliff asking if anyone is there. Then our protagonist signaled them that he is over there. This group of people are mages that appears after the game tutorial. One of them asked our protagonist if he's able to cross over since there's no bridge. He replied, "Yes, I'm on my way." Another mage said, "Let us wait to see if he can cross it, but he would have to be at least a 3rd-class knight. Could he have such skill?" Another mage asked, but their jaws left their mouth as he began jumping from one floating boulder to another. "Is that a jumping type of magic?" the mage with red hair asked, and a girl replied that it is a blink. Now they all wondered how Baek-Yuseol could control the distance and direction of the blink perfectly, and by now he was already on the 10th floating boulder out of 20, remaining 10 to cross over the other cliff. Suddenly 2 men on veil came to the cliff our protagonist just left, and they began casting attack spells towards him. He quickly used his blink skill to dodge the attacks, but since his blink skill has 3 seconds cooldown, dodging all the magic attacks would be impossible, so he decided to find the next floating stone that he would stand on. Suddenly the 2 men casted multiple spells that blew up all the floating boulders around him, including the one our protagonist is standing on, and he began falling. The remaining floating boulders were far from him, but he hoped to land on one as he used his blink skill. Luckily for him, he held onto a rock on the other cliff, and he survived the fall. But not for long. The 2 guys sent a fire spell as our protagonist was hanging on the cliff. He thought this is where his life would end. But suddenly, someone countered the fire spell using a powerful spell with combination of ice and lightning, and he was saved. The person who saved him turned out to be one of the mages on the other cliff. Upon seeing how powerful she is, the 2 guys chasing Baek-Yuseol ran away in fear. Baek-Yuseol got up and thanked the mage for helping him, but she replied that she didn't help him because she wanted his gratitude. Baek-Yuseol thought to himself that she has a cute voice, but she's difficult to approach. Those men chasing Baek-Yuseol from the beginning were members of the Dark Demon cult, and they stopped chasing Baek the moment he entered the mage territory suddenly. The game system sent our protagonist the episode 2 task, which says that he should enroll in the Stella Academy. Baek felt that the mission would be easy, but the thought of him going back to school days sounds annoying. Early in the morning, our protagonist followed the mages in their cart on a path leading to the Stella Magical Academy. While he was sleeping, he began having after-images of Baek when he was still little. And since Baek memories are now his own, he remembered when he promised his mom that he would be a mage when he grows up. He also worked hard to achieve the goal, but all were in vain when the magical doctor informed his mom that Baek has mana leakage syndrome, and he cried so hard that he won't be able to make his mom proud. Now back to the present. The sky was clear, and it was an unknown time in the morning. After traveling, the mages suggested that they rest for a while, and while Baek was resting, he noticed the blue-haired girl glaring at him, and when he wanted to greet her, she removed her face. That's cold, he thought to himself, however. Baek was glad that Etherworld is in modern age, rather than Middle Age. Magic exists in Etherworld, so ships and trains travel through magical holes and spaces. The Magical Academy is located at the city of Arcanium, and that's where they are heading to, but they have to stop at Lizoecha to get on a flying ship in the city of Arcanium. There are renowned magical towers as well as magical knights orders and 5 renowned academies in Arcanium, and within them, Stella Academy has the most powerful mages and most excelling students, and because of this, the academy is filled with nobles and geniuses from all over the world. We still don't know how Baek managed to gain admission into renowned school. Baek was curious about his skill, so he checked it on the game system. He was still at Magic Leakage Syndrome level 1, but he also has 6th Sense skill and Mana Acceleration. These 2 skill were what saved him in the previous battle. Magic Leakage Syndrome is a cursed physique that stops him from storing mana in his body, but it also helps him to detect mana around him. He could also sense any attack coming towards him, even when he is not looking. These skills are necessary for Baek since he can't use mana, but he can't use 6th Sense for long, because it uses a lot of mind power, so it has high consequences after he uses it. Baek checked his stats and he was happy to see that they were pretty high for a beginner like him. Skills levels are in indicated stars, and the highest an individual could reach is 9 star. But it seems impossible to reach. Our protagonist has played the game for over 10 years, but the highest he has reached is 8 stars. Then he thought to himself that he won't survive if he doesn't train his Magic Leakage Syndrome. He heard that there is a way to treat Magic Leakage Syndrome at Stella Academy, which means he has to go there in order to treat his syndrome and stop the end of the world, even if he doesn't want to go. They finally got on one of the magical airship heading to Arcanium, and they were urged to take their seats as the ship was about to leave. The ship was filled with nobles and wealthy family. And one guy said, "Look at that guy looking around like a lost kid. Has he ever been on a flying ship before? He must be some country bumpkin." They all gossiped at Baek and referred to him as a peasant. Little did they know that our protagonist came from a more modernized world, and he felt there was no need to reply them since he is older than all of them in reality. Suddenly, all the passengers became quiet because Princess Bion of Adalbet Kingdom came into the ship. She's as pretty as the sunset, and she's every guy's dream. One guy tried to greet her, but her gaze alone made him speechless, and behold, she's this world, villainous. Hong Bion is one of the main character of this game. She and the main female character always have arguments, but she dies in every ending of the game, no matter what skill the player has. It's as if the people that developed the game had resentments towards her, so they wanted to punish her. As she passed by Baek he thought to himself that she's really pretty, but he feels like she would kill him if he talks to her. Suddenly, he had an alarm in his stomach. He was hungry, so he decided to go eat something. When he got to the ship's cafeteria, he was shocked by the prices of food. They were so expensive that he held his hunger and decided to eat when they reached the city of Arcanium. Then an announcement came from the ship that they would land in 10 minutes,